You see, when a woman leaves you, she's not just walking away from a relationship. She's walking away from a version of you that in her mind no longer holds value. That's a hard truth, but it's also a powerful invitation. Because if and when she comes back, the most dangerous mistake you can make is to let her return to the same man she chose to abandon. This is where most men fall short. They operate out of scarcity, not sovereignty. She reappears, says she's confused, says she misses how things used to be, and suddenly all the dignity he rebuilt during the separation crumbles. He reverts. He thinks getting her back validates him. When in fact, who you become in her absence is what truly defines you. You don't need to punish her. You don't need to be cruel. But you absolutely must not be passive. Tritaine Richard, Foutement sous de Connard, Lefebvre de l'Orsay, Messieurs le Mas, Napoles, Dortin, Sur le Mas, Sur le Mont, Le Passigneux, Truteny Pass. A woman returning isn't always an apology. Sometimes it's nostalgia. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's regret, not because of who you were, but because of how well you handled the breakup, how calmly you let go, how silently you evolved. And here's the core idea most men miss. Her return is not about love, it's about psychology. Human beings, especially in intimate dynamics, are drawn back to mystery, to strength, to what they don't fully understand or control. If she left you when you were overly available, overly giving, overly desperate to be chosen, and now you welcome her back with the same energy, you're reinforcing the very reason she walked away. Evolution is the antidote. Not revenge, not bitterness, not performative glow-ups to prove something, but genuine, grounded, unshakable transformation. Ask yourself, would the man you are today even choose her again, or are you still chasing the fantasy of who you hoped she could be? You must become so rooted in your identity, in your values, that her return doesn't excite your ego, it challenges your standards. And if you haven't upgraded those standards since she left, you've missed the point entirely. Because here's the truth. If she comes back and finds the same man, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, she'll leave again. And next time, it will be without looking back. There is a moment after heartbreak where a man is either reborn or remains stuck. When she circles back, it will trigger something familiar, comfort, desire, even a false sense of closure. But emotional maturity means recognizing that familiar doesn't equal right. What you feel is valid, but what you accept determines your future. Let her meet the man she thought she could replace, and now realizes she cannot. The man who no longer needs her affection to feel valuable, the man who built himself in silence, who no longer fears solitude, who doesn't need a woman's return to validate his worth because he already found it in himself. When she comes back, don't give her the old emotional access code. That passcode has expired. The relationship has expired. And if something new is to be built, it must begin on your terms, from your new identity, not from her nostalgia or your loneliness. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. She left for a reason. You stayed for a purpose. And if that purpose didn't lead to evolution, then what was the pain even for? Let her come back. But let her meet the man she thought you'd never become. Because if the man she left is still the one who opens the door, then you both lose. When a woman who once walked away decides to return, the biggest error a man can make is surrendering the frame. And I don't just mean power in the traditional sense. I'm speaking about the psychological frame that governs the entire emotional dynamic between two people. The frame is who leads the energy, who defines the emotional tempo, Who sets the boundaries of what is acceptable and what isn't? If she left and now comes back and you hand her the reins the moment she reappears, you've already lost something far more important than her. You've lost yourself. Because let's be honest, when someone leaves, there is a rupture in the narrative, a break. She took her story and walked out. So if she's back now, there must be a new story, one that doesn't revolve around her comfort or your old longing to win her back. This return must happen on your narrative terms, not hers. That means no chasing, no appeasing, no rehearsed speeches about how much you've missed her. Instead, it's a space of firm but calm inquiry. Why now? What's changed? What are you looking for? Most men won't ask those questions. They're too caught in the euphoria of her return, the dopamine hit of her name lighting up their phone, the validation they've secretly craved. And that's exactly where the trap lies. Because while you're celebrating her return, she's quietly scanning your energy to see if the power dynamic still tilts in her favor. If it does, if she senses that your self-worth still hinges on her, she will inevitably lose respect again. It's not conscious cruelty, it's human psychology. A woman doesn't just respond to words, she responds to energy, to posture, to presence. If you fall the moment she reappears, you're signaling that your emotional center still belongs to her, that you were merely waiting passively for her to decide if you're worthy again. But love, real love, cannot thrive in that imbalance. It needs mutual gravity. It needs two sovereign individuals, not one orbiting the other. So what does it look like to hold the frame? It's not aggression. It's not arrogance. It's clarity. It's stillness. It's being able to look her in the eye and welcome the conversation, but not with the goal of winning her back, with the goal of understanding her intent and determining whether it fits your standards now. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but that's the point. You decide. The moment she left, she exercised her power of choice. When she returns, that power shifts. But if you're still operating from emotional debt, like she owes you something, or like you owe her forgiveness just because she's back, then you haven't really grown. Because the truth is, her return is not the reward, your self-retrol is. Men often believe that regaining the woman is a sign of redemption. But sometimes, real redemption is in not taking her back. Not because you're spiteful, but because you've outgrown the dynamic that allowed her to live in the first place. And if you do choose to explore reconciliation, it must be built from a different blueprint. You lead the tempo now. You set the emotional tone. And if she's unwilling to meet you there, not in submission, but in mutual emotional maturity, then you'll know the answer without ever needing to ask. You don't have to control her to lead the frame. You simply have to control yourself, your reactions, your pace, your standards. Because the man who holds the frame doesn't chase, he chooses. And the moment you let her write the story again, you become just another chapter she can close. When she comes back, don't just listen to what she says. Watch what she does. Because words are easy, especially when people are nostalgic, lonely, or afraid of starting over. But when a woman returns after choosing to leave, the first thing you must do is resist the temptation to romanticize her reappearance. It's not a fairy tale. It's a test. And here's the nuance most men miss. Her return isn't always rooted in clarity. Sometimes it's avoidance. Sometimes it's emotional confusion, or even strategic comfort seeking. You may be familiar, safe, predictable, but none of that is proof that her intentions have evolved. You have to be willing to ask, is she returning out of reflection or out of regret? Is it you she's coming back for, or just what you represent? This is why detachment matters. You can love someone deeply and still stay clear-eyed. In fact, that's what emotional maturity is, the ability to hold love and boundaries in the same hand. So don't take her return at face value. Ask yourself, is there accountability? Does she name her part in the breakdown? Does she speak with humility, or does she rewrite history to paint herself as the victim? That difference is everything. Because the woman who truly regrets leaving you will not make demands. She'll make space for dialogue. She won't say, I miss us, as a way to bypass responsibility. She'll say, I've done some work and I realize what I didn't value when I had it. Most men, especially those still healing, want so badly for the story to resolve with reunion that they overlook the patterns that led to the separation. But if she hasn't done the internal work, if she hasn't questioned why she walked away, or what role she played, you're not reuniting with a transformed partner. You're entering a familiar cycle with the same dynamics, just dressed in a fresh apology. Let her show you through behavior, through time, through patience. Consistency is the only real proof of change. Not emotional outbursts, not late-night texts, not promises whispered over dinner. Real growth isn't loud. It's steady. It's measured. It doesn't rush to be believed. It simply acts in a new way, over and over again. This is where many men relapse. They confuse effort with commitment. She may try harder in the first few weeks, say all the right things, appear more available. But effort that only lasts until she's emotionally reassured is not real commitment. It's performance. And you can't rebuild something lasting on performance. You need truth. And truth, by its nature, is uncomfortable. So, this is uncomfortable. It might mean confronting the idea that someone you loved isn't capable of the kind of depth or accountability you need. It might mean realizing that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. But these are the questions that protect your future. These are the questions that stop you from repeating old wounds. So watch carefully. Don't interrogate her. Observe her. Not with suspicion, but with clarity. Does she step into emotional responsibility? Does she respect your boundaries this time? Is she more transparent? Or does she revert the moment things feel too real, too hard, too slow? You owe it to yourself to move with discernment, because this isn't about punishing her, it's about protecting your peace. And if she's sincere, she will not be threatened by that, she will respect it. In fact, the right woman will find your standards attractive, because they signal that you've grown beyond being desperate for connection, and now seek something rooted in alignment. Remember, her return is just an opening. Whether it becomes a second chapter or a final closure depends on how you navigate the next few pages. Don't accept her words at face value. Let her actions write the truth. When a woman leaves you and you survive it, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, something profound happens. If you've used that space wisely, what you begin to realize is that your peace has value. Not theoretical value, not abstract, spiritual value. Tangible value, the kind that you protect, prioritize, and place above fleeting emotional highs. And when she returns, that peace becomes your filter. Because what you're really asking now is, does letting her back into my life disturb what I've fought to rebuild? Most men never pause to consider that. They're so focused on whether she still wants them that they forget to ask if she still deserves access. But here's the thing. Heartbreak, when processed with courage, turns you into someone new. Not in the performative way that some people rush into, changing their haircut, hitting the gym, or pretending they don't care. I'm talking about a deeper shift. One where you stop measuring your worth through her gaze and begin to see yourself clearly for the first time. You start to realize you were always the prize. She just couldn't see it. Or maybe you were the prize, but you didn't know how to hold yourself like one. And now, after the fire, after the solitude, after the nights of quiet reflection, you're no longer the man who begs to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. That shift changes everything. Because when she comes back, it might sound like a romantic reunion, but it's actually a moment of negotiation between the man you were and the man you've become. And that negotiation must be guided by one thing: emotional self-respect. You're not trying to win her back. You're not trying to impress her. You're not trying to avoid loneliness. You're standing in the reality of who you are now, a man who rebuilt his center and won't sell it off just to be loved again. It's easy to forget this when her presence reactivates old emotions. Memory is seductive. Nostalgia can wrap around you like a warm blanket, especially when you've been strong for so long. But growth demands you not fall back into old dynamics just because they're familiar. What once felt like love may now feel like chaos to the man you've become. And that contrast is your wisdom speaking. So here's the quiet truth. If she left once, and you truly did the inner work, she may not even recognize you anymore. And that's exactly how it should be. If she returns expecting the same emotional blueprint, the same accessibility, the same eagerness, the same unfiltered forgiveness, she's not meeting the man who did the work. She's meeting the ghost of the man she used to control. But you're not him anymore. Let her earn her place in your new reality, not through grand gestures or apologies, but through time, alignment, and consistency. And if she can't, then you thank her gently for the lesson and you keep walking, not out of resentment, but out of reverence for yourself. You don't need to prove anything, not to her, not to anyone else. The life you've rebuilt is your proof. Your inner peace is your prize. And any relationship you allow from this point forward, with her or anyone else, must meet the standard of what you now know you're worth. So when she comes back, take a breath, look at the man you've become, and ask yourself one question. With absolute clarity, does letting her back in serve the man I am now, or just soothe the man I used to be?